Oh, shit.
We're back. Hey, podcast listener. Welcome to Classroom Brew. The podcast where you're going to feel like, hey, are these my teachers? At a bar? Talking about everything? Yeah. Actually. Yeah. Welcome back to the podcast. It's 2019 now. Wow, you can tell. Holy shit, it's definitely winter break. Wow. Hair is a mess. I don't know what day of the week it is, but I know for sure this episode is coming out on a Thursday, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's see, what do we got here? So here's the exciting part. For 2019, my new goal is to always have video podcasts. Well, I shouldn't say always. That's kind of ambitious, but I'm going to try to produce more of that content. So if you haven't already, you can always check out Patreon. If we can get a few patrons to support the show, that's when I'm going to really start doing full-length video podcasts. Oh my God, I'm going to look at myself in this viewfinder unless I move it. All right, that's much better. If you haven't already, please make sure you rate and review the show, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. Great. All that good stuff that really helps out the show. My producer, a buddy of mine, he also set up a pod chaser for me. So it's basically like IMDb for podcasters, which is pretty cool. He put a bunch of my appearances on other shows up there. So I was on the Lazy Teacher podcast, obviously, my buddy Brian, shout out. And then I was also on the Honest Teacher podcast and Too Much Scrolling. So if you want to check that out, or if you want to hear the episodes, Podchaser's a really cool tool where you can see where your favorite podcasters have been on with other shows, what they produce, what they host. So obviously this show is on there. Other shows I've been on, they're going to be on there too. But it's a pretty cool tool, and then you can listen to the episodes right in there if you haven't checked them out already. Cool. It's winter break. So when I was actually first I asked a buddy of mine to be my producer for the show, and he's been helping me out with the social media and Reddit. That's actually how I met Brittany, who was just on last week's episode, episode 67. And I took a look at some of the Reddit stuff because he was kind of posting back and forth, and he asked me a while ago, and I answered his questions that he had, like about like, do you get sad when it's time for winter break to be over, or like spring break, summer break, whatever it is. And I didn't really think anything about it when I was talking to him about it, but then I looked, and it turns out he was posting on Reddit basically on my behalf, which was awesome. So shout out to you, Brian. But I was really thinking about, with winter break winding down right now, it's a new year for the podcast, new year for teaching, new year for the students, even though the semester isn't over quite yet. But I was really thinking about the issue of, when it comes to like a Sunday night, for example, I get kind of down. I kind of let Katie know, like, hey, I'm really not feeling too good. Maybe we should do something to get out of the apartment. I got to have some sort of an activity just to keep myself, not just motivated, but like I'll get really in my head and like, I don't really feel like doing this. And, I've got a bunch of stuff to print out and all these meetings. And, sometimes the students on a Monday aren't always very respectful, and I've got to deal with that. So it's kind of like the Sunday Scaries or Sunday blues, right? And I really started to notice this towards the end of summer. And even though I was at the school every single day, man, was I depressed when when summer was winding down and the year was kind of gearing up. Even though I was excited for my second year of teaching, I still found myself thinking like, man, I didn't get to do nearly as many things as I wanted to do. And so I thought about that. How do I kind of avoid the Sunday Scaries, or the end of the break Scaries, if you want to call it that? And my strategy, I don't know what yours is, but my strategy, well, one, I've got a podcast centered on beer. But also, this is key for me. We've tried to do something during the week, like a weeknight activity. So for me, going to the gym anymore, like it's not really a hobby. Podcasting, yeah, it's an escape, but it's still kind of talking about teaching. But we're really trying to do something on weeknights just to kind of give us something additional to do, something to look forward to. So I'll find myself on a Wednesday being like, oh my God, I'm so excited to go bowling. I suck at bowling. But it's something fun that, Katie and I can do to kind of break up the monotony of a work week. Whew, what day of the week is it, by the way? If you know, no, I'm kidding. You wouldn't know when this is recording, unless you're Brian. But I also teach the Embark class, which is experiential learning through experience. And so about once a month, we go on a trip or a journey, a field trip, whatever you want to call it. This is what Adam and I were talking about. Oh, what was that? Episode 64 and 65. And when I was thinking about it, we did these final presentations, these final projects in that Embark class. And it was called My Story, My Voice. And it was a story about their life and what they want it to be, what it is right now, what it used to be, and kind of reflecting on them. And there was like an interview element. There was, they did some poetry. There was a bunch of different stuff, and they presented it to the class. And initially I was worried. Some kids weren't really motivated in the lab. They were kind of wasting time, things that you would expect. But there were a handful that they kind of took it to a very deep level. And I was concerned, like, oh shit, like, are they going to get like laughed at? Is there going to be like a lack of sensitivity? So, I spent about, a day or two, like in between, just making sure like, hey, let's talk about empathy here and let's build on this. Because I didn't want that kid that put themselves out there and did the project to the best of their ability. I didn't want them to feel alienated. And luckily, we did about 3 days of presentations. There would have been 4, but there were still some students that were pretty unprepared. Yeah. So, one student in particular, he's a football player on the team, and he gave such an awesome presentation. And he was talking about things like his mother and, the legal status that she has in this country and how hard that was, and how his father has been his rock, and he's trying to be his rock for his family as well. And he was getting emotional, and it got, even I was getting choked up, and everyone in the audience, it really made me proud. Because, they were just kind of, listening to what this other person, even if they didn't really know him that well, or if they were his best friend, or if they didn't necessarily care about the class as much as I would have hoped, they were all tuned into what he had to say, right? But the funny moment came in when they were doing their wow factors, or the things that they liked about the presentation, just to try to keep it positive. And this other student who had previously given an equally awesome presentation talking about, the struggles in her life and, her family, and, how she hopes to come out on the other side in spite of those circumstances. But let's just say his name is Billy. But she was like, Billy, that presentation, you can't be doing that to me. I got these fake eyelashes. They're going to fall off. And then another student that I have goes, oh no. So it was just this perfect balance of like, we have empathy and sweetness, but then we also have this comedic element. And then of course, another player of mine, he just couldn't handle it. And it was, we all kind of got like a little moment of levity. But what was awesome was that even though I can still hear him right now going, oh no, when we heard the thing about the eyelashes, but it was great because there was this moment of levity, but there was still empathy and caring and understanding. And a few kids even emailed me that night about their presentation, and they said, Mr. F, is it okay if I know our projects are already due, can I make a few changes because I want to do more? After seeing, the presentations of, I think Billy was the fake name I used. After seeing Billy's presentation, I don't want mine to be mediocre. I know I'm capable of more. And so that was just awesome. It took everything that I had hoped, everything that I built up for, and took it to the next level. And not just for the sake of like, oh, that lesson plan went really well. Kids were doing stuff outside of school because they wanted to do more. They knew they were capable of more. So that was pretty cool. Little refill break. I also, by the way, I almost forgot, if we get a studio, so Katie and I are probably going to be moving around September, but I've got a little bit of memorabilia that I can get. Maybe we'll get like a little sign so I don't have to put the digital one. That's on that side. Whoops. But we got a little bottle opener for the wall. That'd be kind of cool to put in the studio. And then like a whiskey barrel table. That would be really cool. So I guess, one of the last things, we've also got in my school, we're getting a bunch of funding, like Chance the Rapper, for example. Excuse me. Chance the Rapper, he's kind of come forward and he's like helped fund like some technology initiatives, and we've also had a few other grants here and there. My room got the renovation over the summer, and I'm getting more and more technology in the room, which is great. But hang on, sorry. By the way, if you couldn't tell my koozie, I do like sports, but this was too funny not to pass up, and I couldn't find the sloth with the bow tie koozie, but this was a pretty close second. But we have our building's over 100 years old, and we have this old photo room, like an old dark room where you would, put like the film into like wall. I don't know how the whole process works. You can Google it, but you can even still see some of the old floodlights. Picture the red room that you would see in pretty much any movie where photography was a thing, but it's not like digital cameras or even like those little instant film cartridges. You guys know what I'm saying. But anyways, we have this former dark room, this former photography room, and it was turned into like a storage facility, storage room, whatever you want to call it, and a social studies office. And so even though there's no power in that room anymore, I went to my principal and said, hey, can we make it into a sound studio? Maybe we can start like a student podcast or student radio station, something like that. And that got green lit. So I might be posting some before and after pictures pretty soon, because I've spent about 5 or 6 hours already just kind of clearing stuff out, making sure that it's going to be okay for soundproofing pretty soon, and, mold and mildew and asbestos, make sure it's safe. But also just getting it off the ground with the students. So I've got the weightlifting club, I've got football, I've got baseball, I've also got now this radio thing, and getting it off the ground is a little bit trickier than you'd imagine. But that's kind of where I'm going to hopefully go in the future. The other thing too, if you would like to, whether you're a teacher or someone interested, a parent, whoever, a fan of the show, if you would like to call in, shoot me an email, classroombrew@gmail.com. I want to start doing like little 4 or 5 minute call-in segments, just to kind of see what you guys think, what you guys want to talk about, give you a chance to feature your content on the show if you have content. So Instagram teachers, this would be a great chance for you to showcase your stuff. We could maybe cross-promote, all that good stuff. Sorry, there was a little bit of a cut in there. But for example, I spoke with, I don't want to spoil too much, but I spoke with, someone that wanted to interact with the show. And so here's a little bit of a clip from my conversation with them over the phone. Hey, Mitch, how you doing, man?
Hey, not bad. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks for being the first one on this is the Teachers of Instagram segment. It's the first time I've done this, but I appreciate you getting up pretty early to do this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I guess a little bit of background. I don't want to take up too much of your time because it is winter break. But what grade do you teach?
So I teach 6th grade language arts. So it's pretty much an all-encompassing English class. Reading, writing, grammar, all that good stuff.
Right. That's awesome. How long have you been teaching?
This is my 6th year teaching. I taught high school for 5 years, so this is my first year in a middle school classroom.
That's awesome. So, I guess reason I was able to find you is because I was just kind of scrolling through Instagram, and I looked up Teachers of Instagram, and you were like one of the first ones that came up. So really, aside from being an ELA teacher, what's your goal for Instagram, or what is it like being an Instagram teacher? Like, is there certain stuff that you have to post? Are you able to like monetize off of that? How does it really work?
So there's, no real specifications. It's really just, my Instagram account that I just post, any dumb thing that I'm doing that day. And it just kind of tends to lean towards, education in my classroom and my career a little bit more. So it started with a way for me when I was teaching high school to connect with my high school students, because it's a platform that they use, regularly. So I was posting things from my classroom and things that we were doing and pictures with them on spirit days and things like that. And then it was a way for them to, kind of see it beyond the school day and interact with me and, comment and tag each other and everything like that. And from there, it just kind of grew as I started meeting other teachers on Instagram and seeing, the resources that they were sharing. And it just kind of blossomed into a resource and a platform for me to kind of show, the internet, the things that I do with my students and, who I am and what I'm doing in my classroom.
Yeah. Well, and I saw on there, do you still get a lot of student and parent engagement with that Instagram?
I do. So I know, it's a little bit harder now teaching middle school versus high school before. So I don't I don't use it explicitly in the ways that I used to with my high school students, just because my students now are younger. But they do tell me that some of the middle schoolers that do have it do tell me that they see my posts and follow me and things like that. And then I have some parents from as well that I know are on there, kind of checking out what we're doing. But
Yeah.
now that I teach middle school, I'm more posting just me and the things that we're doing. I don't post my students anymore.
Sure.
What they're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of tricky. I think the few times that I'm not too big on Instagram, the few times I did, I had to put like an emoji over their face just to play it safe.
Yeah.
So I guess last thing, what's your handle for Instagram, by the way? I almost forgot. I'll post it in the video, but what's the handle?
Yeah, it's just my last name. It's Mr._Meighen is my last name. It's Meighen.
Okay, cool. So you guys be sure to check that out. But I guess in terms of, you said posting all your content and having engagement for students and parents and seeing what other people are doing, do you have any other goals for that Instagram account?
That's pretty much it for me. I mean, it's really just for me about connecting with other people who have similar interests or similar backgrounds or similar beliefs. It's a way for me to kind of increase and grow what I'm doing with my students and what I'm doing professionally, because I can reach out to other people who I know have a strength in a certain area or who have a skill for a certain concept or specific piece of content. So I can reach out to them and get help from them for free, and use that to benefit my career in my classroom with my students.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. But thanks, man. I'll post a link for people if they want to check you out on Instagram. You posted a bunch. I scrolled through like a couple pages and stuff, and I saw some pretty cool classroom pictures. There was this pretty cool purple suit, by the way. I saw that. It was like one of your top pictures. That was cool. But thanks again for being on. We'll have to do like a follow-up, see where things are at, like a quick 3 or 4 minute phone call again. But
yeah,
I also saw you're in Chicago too, right, man?
Correct.
Nice. So we'll have to find out something. Maybe we'll see each other at a PD or something like that, because I'm also in Chicago. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thanks again, Mitch. I appreciate you being on. Everybody else, make sure you check out Mitch's Instagram. I'll put the link in the description as well as on the video right here.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, take care, man.
Take care.
Oh, hey. So that's all that I had for this week. This was episode 68. If you haven't already, rate and review, subscribe in whatever app you're listening to. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. YouTube is now getting a little more love. You can check us out on social media. Excuse me, you're getting the live, uncut version. We did this one live.
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
But you can also reach us at Classroom Brew on your favorite social media. ClassroomBrew. No spaces on that. What else do I usually cover? Video clips. I'm going to try to put these out a little more regularly. You can always check out the video podcast highlight clips. We're really posting that. Facebook.com/ClassroomBrew as well. Be sure to check out #TeacherPods. You can check out my buddy Brian on the Lazy Teacher podcast. I've been on there a couple times, as you would know from Podchaser. And if you want to check out my Podchaser page, it's going to be Ryan Michael. Again, keeping the last name out of it. But Ryan Michael or Ryan F, and you can find out what other shows I've been on, my other appearances, and then, of course, other information about the show, because it's like IMDb, but for podcasters. So this was episode 68, the first one with video. We're going to try to continue this trend, maybe try to improve it. So if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to let me know. I'm not going to take it personally. I love hearing from you guys. And, of course, interact with us. So, again, this was episode 68 of Classroom Brew. Welcome back. It's 2019, new year for the podcast. But until next week, class dismissed.